Michelle Bachelet, High Commissioner for Human Rights, welcome to Al-Arabiya.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. On December the 10th, it's the 70th anniversary of the Human Rights Declaration. That's the Universal Human Rights Declaration. Can you share with us your thoughts and what it means to you that day, and what's your message to the world?
Well, when you read again and again the Universal Human Rights Declaration, it amazes me because I think it's so well conceived. We have to remember that it was drafted after two world wars, where humanity saw the horrors of the world, atrocities and genocide. And on the other hand, also after this huge Grand Depression, economic depression, that brought so much desperation for so many families. So there were the conditions that people will sort of understood that we needed to ensure people's right, all kinds of rights, not only a couple of rights. So they understood that these rights were universal just because we are human beings, not because we pertain to a certain geographic area of the world, religion, ethnic group, or whatever. It's just because we are human beings. And I think it gave also sort of an important ethic framework to governments. So how to develop their policies in terms of being in compliance with the Universal Declaration. The thing is that sometimes when you see the news, you will say, oh, is it that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has not been respected? Of course it has not been respected in many parts of the world, but we have had progress. If you think 70 years ago, probably we had a lot of countries under colonialism. We had a segregation, bigger segregation. Women's rights were really not protected. We had apartheid. We had slavery in many places. So if you look at now, we have progress in many areas. Many countries had included the Universal Declaration principles in their constitutions, in their laws, and also all the other treaty bodies that have been developed to respect and promote many different rights. So I think we have progress. But still, when we look at the world today, we still have a long way to go. And probably I would say we will never be able to give up because it looks like human being is always confronting different issues. Inequality is in the root causes of many of the conflict. So my message would be, let's have this great opportunity on the 70th anniversary to recommit on how all of us stand up for human rights all over the world.
When you were a young girl, you were yourself a victim of violations of human rights, you and your family, I must say, in Chile. But you succeeded to become the president, the first woman president of Chile, and you became the president twice in Chile. Your experience as a victim, as a president of Chile, and also as the first executive director of UN Women when it was first founded in 2012. How did that prepare you to be where you are now?
Well, I think it gives me both perspectives that are important. Because, you know, my mandate is to be the voice of the voiceless, but also to engage with government so they do the right things, and also to provide capacity building because sometimes institutions are not well prepared to do what they have to do, and also to give technical assistance to countries and governments. And also, of course, to protect and human rights defenders and journalists' rights, etc. So I think coming from an NGO because I was a prisoner, but also I work in an NGO protecting children's rights because I'm a pediatrician during dictatorship. And afterwards I went into office being a minister. First I've always been a public servant, but then I became Minister of Health and afterwards Minister of Defense. And afterward President of the Republic twice, as you mentioned, and in between UN Women, Executive Director. So I think on one hand that permits me to understand the UN, how the UN system works, even though the human rights system in the UN is a little bit different. I mean, it doesn't mean, because my office is independent, I'm supposed to be somebody who is independent. To be able to be credible and reliable, we are supposed to be impartial, objective, non-selective, etc. And I think it will help. Because I was in a meeting with the NGOs and one man told me, I'm so happy that you were in jail and tortured. So I said, oh, come on. But what he really meant was, you understand us. You have been in our,
You had the experience.
yes, we have been in our shoes, if I may say, and you have the experience. But on the other hand, I have the other experience on office, and how sometimes people make decisions that not always are the decisions maybe they want, because they need also the parliament support. And sometimes things happen, but it's not the state policy. So I hope to bring to my position both sides in terms of being, not only being the voice of the voiceless that I had to be, but also try to think how I get results. Because it's not only about naming or shaming, it's about how we improve people's life and people's rights. So I hope both experiences will help me to deal with both issues, to deal with governments, to deal with NGOs, human defenders, and victims.
The Middle East. I'd like to move to the Middle East. There's a feeling after the so-called Arab Spring, it was apparent that there's a dire need for security. There are many threats, and security is of utmost importance. And sometimes human rights got trampled by the concerns of governments to protect its people. Do you have an equation to ensure safety and security for the Arab population while adhering to the human rights principle?
Well, this is something that I've been thinking a lot about, because in many places of the world, but of course also in the MENA region, you find human rights violations that are justified on counterterrorism policies. But even in those cases, there are international laws that, shows the way how to deal with terrorism. I think, of course, you need to deal with terrorism, but how to do it in a way you don't violate human rights. There are, if I would say, legal frameworks that can support that. On the other hand, I do believe that in any conflict, what should be really avoided is to damage civilians, because what you see in any conflict for so long, I mean, at the beginning, when you have armed conflict, were the militaries of the sides who were the ones who were the casualties. But we've been seeing for a long time that now the people more damaged are not the ones who are in the conflict itself, in the armed conflict, but it's civilians and children. And so we are urging every time in different conflicts, and even in Yemen, that is now having these issues on casualties on civilians because of airstrikes. But on the other hand, all these people, 14 million people with famine, and young children starving and dying of starvation, something that is unbelievable in the 21st century, and we know that. And so we have been urging states and all parties involved, for one hand, to not target civilians, not target children, and on the other hand, to release all the restrictions so humanitarian forces can go there with food, water, and all the supplies needed. Because some people are dying because of the conflict directly, and others indirectly. So that's one example. But this example could be followed everywhere in all the conflicts that we have seen in the area, and unfortunately there are a lot, to call on protecting civilians.
I would like to touch on your background. You are a believer in socialism, just like our friend Antonio Guterres is, and you come from the same sort of background. Do you give special attention to the individual social and economic human rights from where you are, from your position?
Well, since I came to the office, I've been speaking to my colleagues there that we need to deal with all rights, not only with political and civil rights, because those are very important,
Of course.
but we also need to ensure economic, social, cultural rights, and also now what some people call third generation, like environmental rights, digital rights, cyberspace and rights, because there are all new issues that are really being able to promote human rights or violate human rights. So we need to be concerned with that. I truly believe that economic rights are very important. The right of development is very important and crucial. But we cannot do, and I don't think anybody should do, because we have said that human rights are universal, interdependent, and not divisible. We cannot say, okay, I choose 3 rights, but I don't give you 4 rights. So it's not that I invite you to I feed you, but you can't speak, or I feed you, but you cannot participate, or something like that, or I feed you, but I can, but I will discriminate you by race, gender, ethnic, or religion. Those things shouldn't be like that. So I give a lot of importance of what you say, because that is what happens with daily basis life of the people, but we need to ensure that people have access to all their rights.
So I have 2 more questions. One of them is about the Human Rights Council mandating your office to compile a list, some call a blacklist, containing the names of companies who have commercial links with Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories, which is illegal by international law and also by United Nations resolutions. Where are you from fulfilling this mandate? When shall we expect to see the list? And what do you expect to be done with this list?
Well, the first thing is that we are going to follow exactly the work as mandated by the Human Rights Council Resolution 31/36, and there is a team working on this, and they have been continuously engaging with the companies and sending initial letters of information, responding to general queries on the so-called database, and its mandate, responding to specific queries of the company's activities, and providing additional information when it's required. And consistently with the paragraph 26 of the 2018 report, after all screened companies have been contacted, our experts will provide the council. We have to provide the council with a report on this.
When?
Well, we believe that it could. The job has not finished yet.
Yes.
We're soon, so we believe that the report will be submitted to the Human Rights Council on its next session in March next year.
Next year.
Yes.
And what do you expect to be done with these names of these companies that are named in your report that they are conducting illegal operation in illegal settlements in occupied Palestinian territories?
Well, I don't know what the Human Rights Council will decide, because this is a mandate from the Human Rights Council, and they're the ones that in the discussion during March session.
But you're an experienced politician, and you let countries, and I'm sure you have an idea or two what can be done with such a list.
Well, what has happened until now, I have to say, is that some companies already decided to get out, and I think probably that was the intention of when the member state approved that resolution, is that some companies will realize that they are doing something that is not on the international law patterns and norms and standards, and that they will really think about it if they should remain or not.
You are visiting the Middle East, I hope soon. I just heard you mention Yemen. Do you have other plans to visit other countries?
Yes.
Can you share them with us?
Yes, I mean, I'm still preparing the whole agenda for next year, but I'm looking forward to visit Israel and the Palestinian occupied territory in early 2019. So, and I'm sure there will be other opportunities too as well. As I mentioned, my ASG Engineer is now, or just until today, in Yemen, and then going to other places. But I mean, my first visit will be probably to the OPT.
Michelle Bachelet, High Commissioner for Human Rights, we thank you for your time, and we thank you for this interview. I wish you all the very best of luck.
Well, thank you so much, Lalo, and I will just use the opportunity to call everyone to stand up for human rights, because human rights is not the responsibility of the High Commissioner. Of course, I do my job, but it's everyone's responsibility.